Have you ever been the last person to know the truth about someone you trusted with everything? My name is Jordan. I'm 34 years old, and 6 months ago, I was planning to spend the rest of my life with a woman named Priya. I had a ring hidden in my sock drawer. I had a weekend trip booked. I had a whole future mapped out in my head. Then I came home early one Tuesday with leftover Thai food and heard her laughing. Not the polite laugh she gave strangers. The soft, private one she used to save only for me. What I heard next stopped me cold in the hallway. "Relax," she said. "He's not supposed to be home for another 2 hours. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you is going to make your jaw drop." I work as a logistics coordinator for a mid-sized shipping company. Nothing glamorous, but the pay is solid and the hours are predictable. Priya always knew when I left and when I came back. That Tuesday, my afternoon meeting got canceled, so I picked up Thai food and headed home early. A nice surprise, I thought. I was smiling when I reached our apartment door on the 3rd floor. Then I heard her voice, light and easy, drifting through the gap. I froze. She was talking to someone. Not on the phone. Someone was actually there in our apartment. I leaned closer and caught it clearly. "Relax. He's not supposed to be home for another 2 hours. My hand stayed on the door handle and didn't move. Through the hallway mirror propped near our entrance, I caught a reflection I will never forget. A man, tall, wearing my gray hoodie, standing barefoot in my living room like he owned it. My gray hoodie, the one I'd been looking for all week. I stood there for what felt like a full minute. My chest felt hollow. I didn't push the door open. Instead, I stepped back quietly, turned around, and walked back downstairs. That single decision to not go in changed everything that followed. I circled the block twice. I needed to think clearly, and standing in that hallway wasn't going to help me do that. After about 10 minutes, I walked back up, made sure my footsteps were loud, even jingled my keys before putting them in the lock. When I pushed the door open, the apartment was quiet. Priya was curled up on the couch under a blanket, eyes half closed, looking like she'd been napping for hours. The man was gone. No shoes by the door. No extra glass on the table. Nothing. She cleaned it up fast. "Hey," she said softly, stretching. "You're home early." "Meeting got canceled," I said, setting the food on the counter. My voice came out steady. I was proud of that. She stood up and kissed me on the cheek. That's when I noticed it, her perfume. The one I bought her for her birthday. The one she only wore on special nights. She hadn't been napping. She'd been performing. I smiled, asked about her day, and listened to every word she said. But something inside me had already shifted. That night, while she slept beside me, I picked up our shared tablet from the nightstand. In the notification bar, just barely visible, were the ghost previews of deleted messages, still floating there like smoke. The name on those message previews was Marcus. Wait, no. I said I wouldn't use that name. His name was Felix. She'd mentioned Felix before, casually, the way people mention someone they want you to think is unimportant. "Oh, Felix? He's just a friend." Barely even that. But the previews told a different story. I restored the deleted thread from the tablet's synced backup, something she clearly didn't know was possible. What I found made my stomach turn slowly, like a wheel grinding. Weeks of flirty messages. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. Complaints about me, my boring routines, my predictable schedule. But buried in the middle of it all was one message that changed the shape of everything. She had written, "Once the lease is handled, everything gets easier." I read it 3 times. At first I thought she meant something general. Then I noticed the messages just before it. She'd been asking Felix detailed questions about apartment contracts, about how bonuses worked at companies like mine, about timing. She knew about my upcoming bonus. I had never told her the exact amount or the date. I had never told anyone. She had been doing research. This wasn't just emotional betrayal. She had been building a plan. 2 weeks before that Tuesday, I had driven 40 minutes to a jeweler's store and spent 3 months of savings on an engagement ring. It was simple and elegant, exactly what Priya always described when she talked about rings hypothetically. I had hidden it in the back of my sock drawer, wrapped in a piece of cloth. The plan was to propose during a weekend trip I'd booked at a lakeside cabin. A trip she had begged me to plan for months. That night, after finding the messages, I opened my email and pulled up the trip reservation. My eyes landed on something I'd never noticed before. The itinerary had been forwarded. Not to a friend. Not to a family member. To Felix. And below the forwarded email, she had written 7 words that I keep coming back to even now. After this, I'll know how much longer I have to fake it. I sat in the dark of our bedroom for a long time after reading that. She wasn't confused. She wasn't unhappy and looking for a way out. She was running a calculation. I was the number she was working with. The ring stayed in the drawer, but something had hardened inside me. Quiet and cold and very, very focused. She was going to underestimate me one last time. I'm not a dramatic person by nature. I don't yell. I don't flip tables. What I do is think in straight lines. So over the next several days, I started documenting everything carefully. Screenshots of the restored messages with timestamps. Records from our smart door lock. An app on my phone she had completely forgotten about, showing exactly when the door opened and closed while I was at work. Felix had been coming over for more than 3 months. Tuesdays and Thursdays, mostly, between noon and 3. While I was coordinating shipments and eating sad desk lunches, he was in my apartment wearing my hoodie. But the financial records were what truly shook me. I went back through our shared expenses carefully. Priya had my card details saved on her phone for emergencies. What I found was a pattern of small charges, restaurants, ride shares, a spa visit, on the exact days she told me she was with her cousin. Every single receipt was for 2 people. I felt something move through me that wasn't quite anger and wasn't quite sadness. It was closer to clarity. She hadn't just been cheating. She'd been funding it with my money, laughing at my trust, and planning her exit. And she thought I hadn't noticed a single thing. About a week after the Thai food incident, I drove to see Priya's older sister, Nadia. Nadia and I had always gotten along well. I brought a small package, a book she'd lent Priya months earlier, as my excuse for stopping by. We stood in her doorway making small talk, and I gently steered the conversation toward Priya, asking how she seemed lately. Nadia looked slightly uncomfortable. Then she said something that confirmed everything. I figured you two had already talked about the move. She caught herself immediately, but it was already out. I kept my face completely relaxed. Oh yeah, we've been going back and forth on timing, I said, as if I knew exactly what she meant. Nadia seemed relieved. She mentioned that Priya and Felix had been looking at apartments for at least 2 months. She even laughed a little, saying Priya had told her I was too trusting to notice anything was off. I smiled all the way through the rest of that conversation. I hugged Nadia goodbye. I sat in my car for a moment before starting the engine. There was no confusion anymore. No wondering if I'd misread anything. This was not an accident. It was not a moment of weakness. It was a coordinated plan, and I had been the easiest part of it. Once I understood what was really happening, I moved carefully and without rushing. First, I transferred my personal savings into a separate account she had no access to. Then I separated every linked payment, the streaming service, the grocery delivery, the utilities on autopay, and removed her access quietly one by one. I changed every password that mattered. Then I called my landlord, Mr. Osei, a serious and straightforward man who I'd always had a good relationship with. I asked him a direct question. Whose name was actually on the current lease renewal? He confirmed it was mine only. Priya had never been added, despite her asking about it twice in recent months. She had assumed her name was being processed. It wasn't. I thanked Mr. Osei and hung up. Then I found the email that sealed everything. In her drafts folder, which she'd forgotten was still synced to our shared tablet, she had written out a rough financial calculation. It included my expected bonus date, our shared bill amounts, and a note that read, "Stay until after bonus clears. Then it's clean." She had set a deadline on our relationship like it was a contract she was waiting to cash out. So I got there first. 2 weeks after I'd started putting everything in order, Priya came home glowing and announced she had planned a surprise anniversary dinner. She'd made a reservation, picked my favorite restaurant, even bought a new dress. I almost felt something close to sadness watching her perform. At dinner, she was extraordinary. Soft eyes, gentle touches, a voice full of warmth. She talked about the future, about how grateful she was, about how she sometimes couldn't believe how lucky she was to have me. I listened to every word. I nodded. I smiled. I said the right things back. I was watching a performance and I knew every line was rehearsed. Then she excused herself to use the restroom. Her phone, face up on the table, lit up with a message notification. The name on the screen was Felix. The message read, "Did he suspect anything after earlier today?" I looked at those words for exactly 5 seconds. Then I placed her phone face down, exactly where she'd left it, and picked up my water glass. The grief I'd been carrying quietly for 2 weeks finally stopped. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even angry in the way I expected. I was simply done grieving and ready to finish what she had started. The following weekend, Priya mentioned she'd been planning a small game night at our apartment with a few close friends, people we both knew. She was excited about it, moving around the kitchen with energy, talking about snacks and playlists. I told her it sounded great. I even offered to help set up. She hugged me, clearly believing that my warmth meant everything was normal. That weekend, I quietly finished my preparations. I compiled every screenshot, every door log, every receipt, and every message into one neat folder on my phone. I made sure everything was backed up in 2 places. I also had a casual conversation with our building's front desk about the TV screen in the common lounge, just in case. Then I did something that cost me very little effort but meant everything. I acted sweeter than I had in weeks. I apologized for being distant lately, blamed work stress, and watched Priya visibly relax. She thought she had read me correctly. She thought the distance she'd noticed was just tiredness. She thought she still had complete control of the situation. The more comfortable she became, the more precisely I could finish this. I wasn't angry. I wasn't emotional. I was focused. And the game night she had planned was going to become something neither of us would ever forget. The evening started well. Music, drinks, the kind of easy laughter that fills a small apartment nicely. Priya was in her element, moving between conversations, touching my arm, making sure everyone saw how happy we looked together. Her friends Tola and Bizi were there, people I liked genuinely. 2 other couples filled out the room. Then, about 40 minutes in, Felix arrived. Priya had added him to the guest list under the excuse that he happened to be nearby, and was basically part of the group anyway. Nobody questioned it. I watched them carefully without appearing to watch at all. The small look that passed between them when he walked in. The way she laughed slightly too quickly at his first joke. The confidence in both of them, that particular, relaxed confidence that comes from believing you are completely invisible. I let the room settle. I let everyone get comfortable and happy and warm. I refreshed drinks. I laughed at jokes. I was the perfect, easygoing host. Then I picked up my phone, connected it to the TV screen, and said with a smile, "Since everyone's been so honest tonight, why don't we play a little truth game?" The laughter in the room was easy and unsuspecting. Nobody knew what was coming. Not even close. The first thing that appeared on the TV screen was the smart lock log. Dates, times, duration. Felix's name wasn't on it, but the pattern was unmistakable. Every Tuesday and Thursday, for over 3 months, the door had opened between noon and 3 while I was at work. Priya's face went still. Then came the message screenshots, not all of them, just the ones that told the clearest story. The "once the lease is handled" message. The forwarded trip itinerary. The "fake it a little longer" line. Right there on the screen in her own words. The room went completely silent. Tola turned to look at Priya. Bizi set down her glass. Felix stared at the floor. Priya tried first. Her voice came out shaking. You're taking things out of context. It's complicated, Jordan." I nodded slowly. "Then let me make it simple," I said. I switched to the financial records. The restaurant charges on the days she'd claimed to be with her cousin. The rideshare receipts. The spa booking, paid for using my saved card details, for 2 people on a Wednesday afternoon. This isn't complicated. I said, keeping my voice even. This is a plan. And everyone in this room just watched me prove it. For a moment Priya tried tears. Her voice broke and she reached toward me and said it was never supposed to go this far. But the room had already shifted. These were people who knew both of us. They had just watched the evidence appear line by line on a screen. There was nowhere to hide. Then something changed in her face. The softness dropped away completely. In front of everyone, her friends, our mutual connections. She straightened up and said, quietly at first, then louder. You were always boring, Jordan. Predictable. Honestly, you were so easy to fool it stopped even feeling difficult. The room went completely still. I think she expected that to hurt me into silence. Instead, I nodded once. I know, I said. That's what made this so easy. I pulled up the final piece. A message from Mr. Osei confirming the lease renewal details. Her name had never been added. The apartment she had been planning to use as her landing pad belonged entirely to me. The car cosign she had pushed for had never gone through because I had quietly declined it 2 weeks earlier. Every exit she had mapped out was already closed. She had spent months building a plan on a foundation that didn't belong to her. The 48 hours that followed were loud and exhausting. Priya went through every phase you can imagine. Crying, shouting, blaming Felix, blaming stress, blaming me for being emotionally unavailable. She said she had felt trapped. She said I never really listened. She tried every angle. I had already packed her personal belongings neatly into boxes while she was out on the morning after game night. I arranged for Nadia to come and collect them, which was an uncomfortable call to make. But Nadia, to her credit, didn't argue. She sounded tired. Then came the part that I think hurt Priya more than anything I did. Felix, the man she had reorganized her entire life around, the man she had stayed in a relationship she'd grown to resent just to protect her path to him. Felix disappeared the moment things became real. He didn't offer his apartment. He didn't defend her publicly. He sent her one message saying he didn't want to be involved in drama and went quiet. She had burned down a stable, loyal relationship for a man who folded the moment the cost became real. I didn't need to say a single word about it. Her own choices were already doing the work. About a week later, she posted online. It was vague, the kind of post designed to make people ask questions without her having to state anything directly. Words like controlling, emotionally cold, finally free. I watched it from a distance and said nothing publicly. I didn't comment. I didn't respond to people who tagged me. My silence was total. Then Tola posted. Just a few words, calm and factual, saying she had been at the apartment that night and that people should be careful about believing one-sided stories. Then BZ confirmed it. Then someone in our wider circle shared the screenshots that had already been circulating quietly. The narrative she had tried to build collapsed in less than 72 hours. Every vague accusation she made online ran directly into the wall of what multiple witnesses had seen in person and what her own messages confirmed in writing. She had tried to use public sympathy as her final weapon, and handed people the exact evidence they needed to contradict her. I watched it unfold from my new apartment, where I had already moved. I posted nothing. I said nothing. My silence made her look worse with every passing hour. It has been 6 months now. I want to tell you honestly, the first few weeks were not easy. I missed the version of Priya I had believed in. I missed the relationship I thought I had. But that grief passed, and what replaced it was something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Real, uncomplicated peace. I sold the engagement ring. I used the money to take a solo trip. 10 days, no itinerary, just places I had always wanted to see. I came back lighter. Through mutual connections, I eventually heard that Priya and Felix had ended badly. Arguments, accusations, the kind of collapse that happens when two people built something on dishonesty and then turned that same dishonesty on each other. I felt nothing when I heard it. Not satisfaction. Just nothing. And here is what I want you to take away from my story. First, pay attention to patterns, not just words. She told me Felix was just a friend with her mouth, while her actions told the full truth. Second, do not react out of emotion when you are hurt. Acting in silence gave me control that an argument never would have. Third, protect yourself quietly. Document, verify, secure. Fourth, loyalty is not weakness. Her plan depended on me being too trusting to notice. But trust is not blindness. Know the difference. If my story helped you, please like this video, leave a comment below, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to this channel. You never know whose life a story like this might reach at exactly the right moment.